Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Romero? Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei? Mr. Verdugo?
Here. Item D, approval of the agenda. Move to approve the agenda with the rule of item H to be brought back.
F, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. You got me doing that. Item F to be brought back to September 20th.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero? Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei?
Yes.
Mr. Verdugo?
Yes. Following advisory member comments. Mr. King.
Yes, sir, this is an agenda item that's made available to BOC committee members to make any comment that they wish to make at this time to go to the cause.
Financial report, bond expenditures, Ms. Messina.
Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. I just passed or handed out a copy, hard copy of one of the two of the attachments that are on the electronic agenda, which indicates and summarize exactly where we stand in terms of our finances and cash balance with county treasurer. Right now, with the county treasurer's office, we have $8,421,406.31. That compares to the $9 million. I'm sorry, I blocked it.
Take it.
Oh. 9 million, where's the attachment? $9,425,000 we had as of the last board meeting back in I'm sorry, that's not even right.
That's it from the 2019, still April 2019?
That's the bond sale schedule of 2019. So I should log on to the, excuse me, I apologize for not logging in yet, but there's about approximately $1.2 million expended from the previous report to the current report that's dated August 11th. And I did attach a copy of the last report you received, which that way you can see for comparative purposes how much money we've actually spent and paid vendors since our last financial report to the committee. Other than that, we're on track to sell our next bond sale in the spring of 2019, which will be approximately $9,425,000. That's the last remaining of the $88 million that was authorized. Looking at the handout that I gave the column sheet, which basically shows how much we've spent in every area. Basically shows how much we have left to expend from the $88 million in the various items that were approved by the community in remodeling renovations. We have approximately $4.5 million to be able to spend to remain within the $32 million. In the athletic program, we have spent already over $5 million. We have $1.7 million encumbered, which leaves $3.2 million still to be expended for athletic projects. Student technology, we've already spent almost $23 million. We've got about $4 million to spend in the future. The other big item really that is at the discretion of the committee to be able to either not spend or reallocate to other projects is the Fine Arts Magnet School, which is approved for $12 million. We've spent $10.2 million, almost 10.3. There's roughly $1.7 million left that can either be used for that school or for other purposes that the committee might decide to in the future. So, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Question?
Mr. Verdugo, just clarification on the 1.7. Since we have the school here, I just want to make sure it's probably highly unlikely that the school will receive $1.7 million of the that's left because of other areas that we may have to reallocate. But I just want to make sure, just to be candid, because I know if you see that sometimes it gets misinterpreted, and I don't want the school leaving here with false hopes since they're here pitching it.
Credits due, I took off that number again.
And I'd just like to say, he just justified if we change our mind.
There is a potential to use it for some site upgrades though, right?
Yes, sir, yeah. Basically, the law allows a 10% increase to either other areas.
Well, I mean, within the school itself. I thought
Oh, yeah.
there were
yes,
some
yes.
issues with the
Yeah.
site.
Yes, sir.
And we haven't hit the 10% yet, correct?
That's correct. We haven't done over 10% over any other project, yes.
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there a restriction on that money? It sounded like you can only use it for certain things, or is
For
it
the
restricted?
For the specific projects that the community voted for, athletics, buses, remodel renovation, security.
Okay, all the items here on the.
They can be reallocated, to my understanding, so we can up a 10% reallocation in any of these
Any of those.
budget items. Up.
Okay, thank you.
10%
Of
per
the,
item?
yes, of that item, like for this remodel renovation is 32 million. You can spend up to $3.2 million more on remodel renovation. Somebody else is going to lose $3.2 million. And Gallo can only lose 1.7.
Yeah.
Call for the security enhancement class.
Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. You recall that the committee did approve and the board also security enhancements to 8 of our elementary schools. Those enhancements have begun, and I think some in the next or the last item on the agenda, you'll have an update as far as the status of those improvements that were made. After the initial analysis of those areas were made, it was determined that we needed to address some issue regarding the additional security of those facilities, specifically open areas where we have no glass or some just safety glass. And the concern was expressed that one of our schools that we just remodeled, Gallo Intermediate, has security glass. And so the request was made to install that similar type of glass at those 4 schools, some of you, Mission Manor, Esperanza, and Rivera. And my understanding is that at some of you, it's completed. Mr. Valencia, do you know?
We're still waiting on the class.
So waiting at the glass, so it was just, but the actual masonry work that needed to be done has been completed.
Frame, everything.
And I think the same thing as for the glass for Mission Manor has been ordered. So the request then is basically to ratify, because I went ahead and issued POs for those 2 schools, but awaiting your approval to proceed with Esperanza and Rivera.
Was the cost of the opening or closing of the opening with the masonry, was that part of their bid, or was that an expense from where?
It was our expense, it was an afterthought.
How much brickwork did that do? I couldn't hear.
How much brickwork was involved in the, at some of you?
At some of you, it took 12 hours work for 2 employees. So 6 hours apiece. And that was our employees doing it. Any other questions? Comments? Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomane?
Yes.
Mr. Verdugo?
Yeah. All middle school gym
Thank you, Mr. Zerrigo, Park Rec Committee members. As you recall, at our last meeting, the committee did approve the installation of new gym bleachers at Challenger Middle School and at Apollo Middle School. Questions were brought up as to why the difference in cost between Apollo and Challenger, at which time I wasn't prepared to be able to answer adequately, and requested that you, so we could proceed with the project, that you at least approve the same amount for Apollo as Challenger. Subsequent to that, we contacted Mr. Basadi and asked him to present to the committee his justification for the need of bleachers on both sides of the gymnasium. So Mr. Basadi is here tonight to give more information to the committee, requesting that you reconsider and allow for the payment and purchase of the original proposal of $56,613 and 82 cents. Mr. Basadi.
First of all, I wanted to thank you all. There's been numerous projects that have been approved as a call-out. Our new doors, the gym floor, scoreboard, that have really helped beautify our campus, make it more safe for our students. In regards to the bleachers, our school is big with our school spirit and bringing all of our kids together for different assemblies and pep reasons. Our different leadership clubs, most specifically our YES Leadership Club, which stands for Youth Empowering Success. Last year, every quarter, would hold and kind of run an assembly on their own where we bring together the entire student body for that to go over different topics, bullying and anti-bullying, and as we kind of progress throughout the year. And if we're approved for just bleachers on one side of the gymnasium, we will not have a venue anywhere where we can bring together all of our students. And I hate for us to lose that as we try to improve our school and make it a better place for everybody.
So you have how many students right now?
As of today, 635.
And the original bleachers seating set, how many?
The capacity of our gym is 1,800.
With the current bleachers?
So the bleachers that we had prior to the floor installation, there were 9 rows on either side. And I believe that, my understanding is that like 4 or 5 rows have been approved for just the one side.
175 seats, one bank of bleachers with 175 seats.
I believe the old bleachers were somewhere around 400. Does that sound right?
It was a lot more than that, because I mean, I've been at Apollo for 9 years now, and our enrollment's kind of fluctuated. And I remember us having over 800 or 900 students in the all fit gym on the bleachers at the same time.
It says here, the total max net seats would be 201 with a 10-inch court side capacity. And it says gross 225. You squeeze everybody in, is that what you mean? You only get a 225 versus a 201?
And enrollment was 6.
635.
Oh, yeah. Could you click on the attachment? First one again.
I thought, Mr. Holmes, what are the enrollments at the other middle schools, Challenger and?
Challenger's at 781. Gallego is 850, 870.
871.
You have Sierra at about just over 1,000. And we have Apollo's actually up this year to about 635. And Mofford's at 735, 745. Memorize them. Staffing.
We had, so in our gym, and I know that the facilities are a little bit different, so I used to work at Challenger, and I also coached at Challenger. So at Challenger, You had one side that had, I want to say like 6 rows, and then the other side of the gym just had about 4 rows. Apollo's an older and much larger facility, so we had 5 rows on each side.
You mentioned special issues. What basically you mean by special issues?
I guess the special issue is that, we don't, that's the only venue we have in which we can bring our student body together. And if we no longer have that venue, I don't see a way in which we could bring even a grade level together.
With the previous bleachers, were you able to do that?
Yeah, but the previous week, we could put the entire student body and had, a little bit of extra space.
And that was what, 400 plus?
No, Mr.
Said about
Masani was saying that it seated more than that. I thought I had heard 400, but you were
It's
saying
more than
that.
that. Our enrollment, like I said, has been, since I've been there, we've been in the 800s and 900s, and they all fit in our previous.
The previous setup that you had?
Yes.
Looking at this proposal, it says Bank A is 225 gross seats for 30,267. Am I correct in assuming that? So if he needs enough to see this whole school, you need 3 banks at 90,800. So that's a little bit more than 56,000 that Sierra was awarded for their bleachers. How many seats did we approve for Sierra's at 56,000? My understanding is Apollo wants the same, similar to what Sierra got. And if you look at trying to accommodate his total enrollment of 635, you need 3 banks at 30,267.89. So that's $90,900, which is quite a bit more.
Yeah, because on the last meeting, they wanted a 5-tier at a cost of $56,613.82.
Yeah, this is a 5-tier, but
For 450.
the original proposal of 56,000, how many seats was that going to be?
450, it says? Is it gross seats 450?
For the 56,000?
The original from last time.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had the
Or net
450
seats,
seats
402.
at
Net.
$56,613.82.
I don't know what that means with the railing.
Smaller kids?
So we're not trying to accommodate the whole school, we're just trying to get 450 seats.
That's-
Not enough to accommodate every student and possibly some parents.
But at the same time, I can't
Staff.
understand why we would take out more and put less,
Yeah.
irregardless of what we approve for Sierra.
Well, I think one of the things that we looked at when we were talking about Sierra was the amount of students they had. They went just from, I think they were 2 to grade 2 to 8 now.
Mhm.
So their enrollment just went way up compared to Apollo. We saw the dwindling enrollment at Apollo, but we knew that Sierra just had that much more kids and that much more need. So I think one of the things that we discussed at our last meeting was saying that we should try to stay consistent with what's being given to Challenger. The other schools now was 31,225 seats for $31,000 approximately. And that's what we agreed on, so.
Yeah, but I think the 2 schools function differently because you've got a complete middle school, whereas the other one is, elementary and middle school. So even if Sierra, say, had a function, I don't think they'd have the whole student body there to do a presentation to 2 different groups.
You're right. Mr. Verdu, just to clarify, I think, because you're raising good points, just to distinguish Apollo a little bit. Sierra has also a new auditorium that has some accommodations that we just approved, which Gallego similarly has capacity within the stadium, but also has an auditorium in there. Apollo has like this kind of room that's in there. I wouldn't call it an official auditorium because it's pretty tiny. I've been in there a number of times. I think what Mr. Masai, knowing kind of where we're at with budget, I think where he's wanting minimally is to get to get at least a class in there. Because they're not bringing the whole school in once a week or every month. It really is quarterly. I think he's willing to, I don't want to speak for you, but I know we had this discussion, willing to accommodate bringing one grade level at a time if necessary, particularly just instead of doing a full group, knowing full well that we are on a budget, and making it look nice as well. That's why we didn't bring forth, we try to reach a compromise of what's doable. You're using it once a quarter, can you do 2 assemblies versus bringing everyone at the same time? So that's why we brought forth only the 450, because the 175 just wouldn't cut it for what he needed.
Right.
Can you explain the gross seats to net seats? It's like 48. Gross in the $56,000 proposal, 450 gross and 402 net.
Seating.
Is that, or even like that, it says 225 or 201?
You know the answer, Mr. Goldman?
No, I don't. I don't know if it has to do with size of people, you know, like versus high schoolers versus junior high.
Yeah.
So I don't have an answer to that, I'm sorry, but I'll find out for you.
Is it like ADA, or they think factoring in like handicap seats?
Well, all the new bleachers are ADA compliant, and they have rails on the ends and then also in some of the aisles, but all of the new bleachers meet ADA regulations.
I think, Ms.
That's what-
Buckman, we have hit it right on the head. I think the extra seats going down from 225 to 201 is to take into account those areas that are designated for ADA.
Oh, okay.
The width of the aisles.
Yes.
Takes-
Long.
Thank you, Mayor.
And my guess, quite frankly, is that the capacity of the current bleacher system under an ADA compliance is probably much less than what we filled them with. In other words, I mean, so he's probably fit definitely about, let's say, 650 kids in that. Probably the ADA compliance regulations for that particular bleacher set, if respect into today's standards, would probably be significantly less. So my guess is just me not being the architect on here, is that as they're put up, they're probably going to look real similar in terms of kind of what you've had before, with some tighter guidelines on how many kids you should be putting in those bleachers. That makes sense? I think that's,
So everybody else is sitting on the floor?
I think he's going to have to just do grade by grade level if we do it.
If you have a school assembly, there'll be kids and teachers on the floor.
With 450 seats, I won't be able to bring them all together. I'll just do like Mr. Holmes said, we'll do a second day assembly and then the next day.
This, the bid for 56,000, is this company the same company that did Sierra's, is the same one that's going to do Hollows?
Yes, more come.
So there's no way of getting around that $7,500 for all the travel costs. I know that seems like a lot of money. I think we discussed this before, that it's too bad we have to spend $7,500 out of that money just to house the workers. Drive time and demo and dispose. We were going to take care of that? Demo and dispose, Hector?
We did,
They did that.
did the demo, we took away, hauled away the,
How are we going to do that? We did that? So is that $4,320 going to come off of that?
we should be discussing that, the price with them as far as negotiating that down, because we did do some of the demo work ourselves.
Yes, at both Challenger and Apollo. They dismantled them, because that's a bit of a specialty and could be a little dangerous. And then they set everything out in piles, the wood pile here and the metal pile here, and then our maintenance staff took it from there.
So will we get a credit for $4,320?
I don't know if we get the entire credit, but we'll negotiate some credit.
$4,320?
We'll shoot for that.
We are getting the credit, we just don't know the exact amount yet.
So the total won't be 56,000, it might be 54,000, 52,000, right?
Yes.
Give or take a few bucks.
Travel time and everything, and Norcon's out of Tucson?
Jim Crater, the representative, lives in Tucson, but a lot of their employees come out of Phoenix.
I just read the head in here, Norcon, and we drop, and why would they need to travel?
We went a long way.
That's crazy.
Do we have a motion?
So is it 2 tiers acceptable to you?
Of course, I'd like more, and I encourage you to take the $1.7 million every Maybe we'll apply it to the bleachers.
Wake up, Roy, wake up. We step out of there now.
I love you guys, but
Because I know how graduations can be too, so get a lot of people complaining.
And we moved graduation.
the last couple of years, we have had it at Sunnyside High School.
Can't you also at one time use the New Life Church on Nebraska?
Yes.
I
When I
remember
first started.
before
it,
you- yeah, or
or
just
when I
before you
first started.
Yeah, they use the New Life Church right there in Nebraska.
So that's pretty sad if you can't use your own venue,
It's crowded either way.
still.
Yeah, and I can't speak, I mean, I know our school was constructed in 1969. The gym, I believe, was an add-on in 1980. And currently, I mean, I just know fire code, there's a sign that's probably been there since 1980 that says, capacity 1,800. I've never tried to put 1,800 people in the seats or counted like heads to see that, but I mean, we did have a much larger capacity. We got them 9 rows on
If I was a parent, I'd say you might as well left the old bleachers. We had more seating capacity.
What would be the safety factor then if you leave the old bleachers? And it's not ADA compliant, right?
Well, and with the old bleachers, I'll be extremely honest, they were hard to maneuver in and out. It took, all my custodians and some additional support staff to try to get them in and out. And to do the floor they needed, because it's, my understanding was from like a floating type of material, that the bleachers needed to be removed in order to put the floor down. And bleachers that I believe were probably constructed in 1980, I don't think were going to be very easy for us to put back together. And I mean, even right now, like I said, before they were taken out, they were not functioning very well.
Just some food for thought, because I agree with Mr. Sproul. I know what, and that we went, I kind of go back and forth, and I even sit in the meeting, like, thinking back, what's the right call? My preference, given what's left in the money, and more importantly, kind of where Mr. Masani's enrollment is to go with as is right now, with the idea that if enrollment continues to increase back where it needs to be, quite frankly, that we could kind of revisit the bleacher proposal. And more importantly, one thing that's still looming on that I'd like to bring back at some point is that multi-purpose area there at Apollo as well, which is kind of the cafeteria where they have the auditorium, and they kind of, because there's pull-out bleachers there as well. So I mean, there's so much work to be done at Apollo that there may be other places where we'd want to invest in first before we kind of right-size the bleacher system, that I'd like to bring back for consideration as well. I mean, so I don't think this rules us out completely from giving him what he needs in the future, but it puts a little bit of pressure on our schools to increase enrollment and to prioritize maybe other areas for now where he can accommodate minimally graduation somewhere else and assemblies for right now, while we look at, is there another area that's probably more priority than to right-size your bleachers at this time? That's just my advice as we're looking at this. I don't know what again,
The multi-purpose room I call from time to time our cafe gymatorium, because it could be any one of those things that different. We use it for various functions and ideals. So, considering that, I would agree with you that we could look and kind of reallocate or ask for different things moving forward.
And what's the fixed seating there that you can pull out of the wall?
That I would not, I don't know offhand. That one has, I want to say, like 8 or 9 rows, but it's just kind of 2 small banks of bleachers in there. We use it for our home wrestling meets, but we don't use it for athletic events.
It does have a huge stage out there.
I just like to be thoughtful in thinking through the long-term plan for Apollo versus kind of what we see as an immediate need, because the school in general is pretty old and worn down, and so I'd like us to consider other priorities. We can always come back and ask for more bleachers. I mean, it's just a matter of where can we kind of look at prioritizations before we go down that road. I mean,
And our student leaders, I believe, would be flexible enough to figure out ways in which they could have a grade level assembly one day and then the next grade the next day. So,
I kind of know your thought about, because of the school being old, getting bleachers for him now, but also going back and revisiting your multi-purpose room, because it has a stage, and it is a large room. You know, yeah, there's limited bleachers, but as far as for seating purposes, you've got the space in it. But then again, you use that as cafeteria, it's just a matter of getting the custodian to put up chairs or whatever, along with bleachers. Because it isn't like, and it does need a lot of work in there as well,
the floor and...
you know?
it is newly painted, our food service.
That is, like,
came
nice.
Over the summer and painted every surface there, and then put new co-base or baseboards
Yeah, you
around
needed
the
them.
floor there.
I'd like to see a proposal to remodel his multi-purpose room there, the cafeteria / area, which would accommodate venues as far as parent programs and so forth, because of the stage being there.
That being said, you want to just table this issue for now?
I mean,
Do something else down the line?
my preference would be to at least approve the $56,000 for the bleachers, because it gives him, they're already redoing the floor. It gives them a place to start with, and it may be where we end, quite frankly, at the $56,000, then come back with other needs at Apollo as Mr. Masana kind of raises it. He's been good steward of both the money and coming to us as a principal, so I mean, I know he'll be back as he thinks through kind of where the needs are.
Well, then I make a motion to approve the proposal as presented for Apollo gym bleachers.
I'll second.
For the two,
Thanks.
Two banks.
two bleachers things.
Or would change price, because we're
Yeah.
going to do that.
Well, less.
Not to exceed the 56,000.
Yeah, not to exceed the
56,13, 82. I make a motion for that. You have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez? Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei?
Yes.
Mr. Verdugo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Light pole, for pole.
Thank you, Mr. McDougal. I have a proposal for Bach to consider the painting of the tennis court lighting poles at Desert View High School. Mr. Gomez has obtained a cost proposal from our painting vendor who's been awarded the paint bid, Nelson Greer. And their proposal is to charge the district $4,420 to do the painting. I discussed this with Mr. Valencia, and he feels that our folks, our staff, could do the painting for an amount not to exceed $3,000. And that's and based on Mr. Valencia's assurances that this work could be done, requesting approval from the committee to have our maintenance department do the job for the amount not to exceed $3,000. With labor and supplies.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez? Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei?
Yes.
Mr. Verdugo?
Too late to jump to G.
Desert View High School fencing facility.
Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. Could I ask the committee to extend a revision to the order? I had requested that the architect presentation regarding Desert View High School, fine arts, and the storage be the first item on the agenda. We have gentlemen heading back to Phoenix. If it would be okay to have them address
Yeah.
the committee first? Okay, Mr. Gomez, go ahead and make the announcements.
Thank you for this opportunity for the project. We have Dominic and Charles from EMC Squared Architects in Phoenix, and they're the project leaders on the Fine Arts addition to Desert View High School, as well as the conversion of the 7 racquetball courts into the storage facility. They also were awarded the design contract for the remodeling of Santa Clara. And so that's on their drawing boards as well. Today they're going to present the Desert View High School projects.
Actually, we did, all 3 of them are in the booklet, and that's what you're going to see on the screen here. Just to update the projects and where we are at the design. So the project we're working on is Santa Clara remodel. It's a project where we're raising the short walls that don't go to the ceiling to provide for sound and better teaching. Issues we've been having with that is trying to figure out the logistics of the airflow between corridors and classrooms, and make sure that we won't have to do a lot of HVAC work with this. We're hoping for it to be as simple as possible. We're also adding a small lobby area for a security vestibule in the front, where there's currently like a shade canopy. So it's very simple, and I think kind of showing it right here at the end of this. Right now, this is just a shade canopy. We're making that a permanent structure and the entry for the Santa Clara. Desert View racquetball courts right now are not being used. We're proposing to enclose them. Pretty basics, just no electricity for lighting. But it's pretty basic, just walls to close off the open ends, and then a roof over it, and some venting to keep it dry.
They're going to insulate those rooms?
Will be insulated the roofs, and the CMU walls have a lifetime spray and insulation. But other than that, no, it'll just be air vented. The roofs will be insulation. And then that same campus, Fine Arts Edition, which is a band room and a conversion of some of the orchestra room and dance and guitar areas into a more functional and modernization of that Fine Arts department. So for Santa Clara, we have enclosed classrooms, remodeled entry, and then we also have an area in the back here where there's a walkway that goes right by some dumpsters that we were talking about screening, just as an eyesore and also a safety concern as the dumpsters by the kitchen. So we're working out a way to either gate off those dumpsters or find a better path for the parking lot. Again, this is the additional square footage that we're proposing for Santa Clara, and then reworking the reception area, which right now is just several desks sticking out into the hallway. and there's no circulation privacy for the reception area, and there's also no security to the front parking lot. So that's the intent of this one. And then, again, several of the walls do not go to the ceiling or above, so it's very hard to teach in there with you can hear the next classroom. We also talked about an issue they had there where the classroom lights are, the switches for the lights are several corridors away, not even in the outside corridor. And so a lot of the light switches have stickers on them, and the teachers have to send the kid to, 2 hallways down to turn on and off the lights in their classroom. We're also going to have our engineers look at maybe putting a switch at the classroom so that it functions a lot better.
Or clap on, clap off?
Yeah, well, something. And they had problems with kids turning them off too, not being seen or doing that. Here's the Desert View jobs. Again, the racquetball courts all here. There's 7, is that correct? And so you'll have 7 large storage rooms, and basically simply, like I said, roofing and closing off the open air. We also have a drainage trench to take any water out to the sides instead of sloping the roof away from the tennis courts, which has recently been remodeled. Expansion on the fine arts is right here at the southwest, and there's existing three rooms here where the function is now. Basically tearing out the insides of those 3 rooms and then expanding out the band room and some of the storage.
Excuse me, sir.
In your storage, there's no need to heat and cool or vent it in such a way that,
No, not, for our understanding, we just want to keep it from getting
a lot of square footage.
superheated, horrible or something, so we want to. It's athletic storage.
Well, my understanding is it's to be for the sports teams. Softball would have one, baseball, track could store their hurdles and their equipment, and especially their new, very expensive mats for pole vaulting and so forth that they have. And so the doors there would be, are they 8 or 10 foot tall on the front?
I think they're 10.
They're 10-foot security doors. A masonry wall along the south side there that faces Valencia. And then they proposed that on top of those existing concrete walls would go trusses that would slope from north to south to the front. And they would have an overhang of about, what is it, 3 or 4 feet, it looks like in your drawings?
Yes, 2.
And it would have 2 feet, and it would have venting underneath and then venting on the north side. So the roof, in the summertime, it would heat up because it's getting sun, and it's going to pull that air through there. And so it's going to have constant ventilation as well as insulation. And if there's any concern about the mats, they can put those in the center spaces, because obviously the east wall space and the west storage are going to get the hottest, but they're constantly going to be ventilating. So it shouldn't be a problem with any of the storage for the sports teams, and it'll be much cooler than the containers that they're using now.
This is one where I just want us to approach with a great deal of I guess, vigilance and concern. The more I think through this particular part of the project, the more I'm concerned whether it's going to really meet the needs that we intended it to be. I think it's a nice idea and concept, but as I meet with other teams and coaches, there's all these unintended consequences that are beginning to raise their head. In other words, the ventilation issue and whether they want to keep mats or how far it is. Are we going to need people to help move things back and forth? I just said, I bring this up because it's a good idea conceptually that I like, but as I'm looking at the pragmatic part of this, I'm also hearing a lot of whining, for lack of a better, about how far they are. I mean, so in other words, I think my biggest concern investing in a good product, it's a good idea, don't get me wrong, but that ends up becoming a place where we start getting requests for, how much the one? For requests for now we need a cart so we can haul everything back and forth, or who's going to go, or now we need fans or AC units because everything we have in there is going to get down. It's kind of this, it's one of those things that it's going to be a never-ending request in that area, I think, moving forward. That's just my prediction as I talk to folks who love the idea but are now seeing what the ramifications are of putting that together. Just being real honest about it.
I'm just saying, you're saying, okay, the mats, they're worried about ventilation, but they have a place to house mats at this time.
Mhm.
Well, they could keep them there, but like your track and whatever, baseball, why not? Do they need ventilation to store their equipment? I remember in Little League, we had a shed. We didn't have air conditioning or cooling or just the openings on the top for ventilation for equipment, or the coaches took them home.
The thing is, we bought college.
Is there a pass-through on each, or is it solid wall?
Solid wall.
It's a solid wall, we're trying to leave it as simple as
Like a
possible.
roll-up pass-through?
Just basically make it secure and weatherproof.
And they are going to be insulated.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like you say for venting, explain to me, you're having that slow venting.
Well,
the-
he would rise, but you would still, I mean, it's not going to be cool in there or
Yeah.
anything, but it will be allowed, ventilation will allow the heat to escape through,
Okay, so the,
like a whirlybird on.
okay, I was thinking like an opening or something.
Yeah, it would be a vent.
We have soffit vents on the south side and then louvers on the north side up high where the new roof trusses are.
So when it rains, you won't get in, depending where the water is swirling around or whatever coming in from the north would enter.
The high part of the roof would be here on the north side. It slopes down to the south. And right along here, in their proposal, they have a saw cut in the slab to put a trench drain. The trench drain right here, and this object right here is an area drain. This is a basin right here, retention basin. So the water would just go down there. There's also 8 light posts here presently. And we've been talking about maybe needing 3 and adding sensors to them that are dusk to dawn and motion detectors so that they're not on unless they're needed. And then the other 5, if the district has use for them, they're totally operable light fixtures for parking areas, or maybe they need supplement in the ball fields or whatever. There would be 5 posts available. That could be the bid contract if the contractor who does its work takes those and maybe relocates them somewhere else. That's something for the district to decide on.
It's just in reference to that, Mr. Verdugo, do we have a preliminary cost estimate on what that would, right now?
No, not on this. Right.
No. I can see this becoming a never-ending issue moving forward. Because if we have coaches already complaining of how far and the heat and stuff, the likeliness it's going to be used for storage from the folks is going to be like pulling teeth, which will end up being empty, an investment of a lot of empty, nice places that we have great ideas for that won't pragmatically be used at the school. That's my big concern.
Or like pole vault mats, because they have the handles on the side, and you have to have a bunch of kids on both sides. The coach sees the kids dragging those things and they're brand new. He's going to have a fit.
I just see a request for a pickup truck coming along with, and I'm not being, as much as it sounds like I'm being pessimistic about it, it's a great idea that I still think is a sound idea that I'm not sure will result in people taking advantage of its usage.
So what are they requesting? They want storage. But they want storage where every athletic field or every area have their own storage shed or per se, or what is it that they want?
I don't think there's a formal request. I just know, I knowing these coaches and knowing kind of where it's located, I don't know there's a good solution that involves this.
I don't think there ever will be.
And then probably may well, and that's the reason why I'm not sure the investment in there will result in changes in behavior from our coaches. In other words, the willingness to go out there may be seasonal, but they'll stay in they're pretty much locked up. And anything that's being used throughout the season is probably going to be stored somewhere else.
Unless you build them under the stadium,
Yeah.
under the bleachers.
I just
So
hate
like
for,
other
for us at this point where we have left, investing in something that we haven't gotten to a place where behaviors are going to be, and expectations will change in terms of storage. That's my only, right?
What phase are you in right now architecturally in terms of?
Basically, we're done architecturally with it, with both of these. I mean,
Specifications already go out, bid them?
oh, no, we haven't bid.
We're not in construction drawings yet?
Yes,
We-
they are.
Yeah, this one's went pretty fast, so. But,
We could always hold, we could always, if it's decided to postpone the project, we could always just hold what you've already done and then later on decide to bid it out. I mean, it wouldn't be anything.
well, I don't know,
else.
can you bid it and get an idea of the price and just not award it? Or is that-
Can we put together a bid on it, or, I mean, your an
Yeah,
estimate, your
sure.
construction estimate?
I can do that too.
Okay. Based on means,
Mhm.
cost estimation guy?
Yep.
This area, Gloria and me is really tall, and we see a lot of work there. I think it's going to be a lot.
So we could go through and solicit bids for this and then have a price, a firm price, and be able to present it to the committee, whether or not they want to proceed with the award.
I basically want to know who's winning. I mean, they want storage, but they don't want the inconvenience. So, okay, so we'd say, who would benefit from this site? Football, track, baseball? Because it's not that far from baseball. So, softball is where? Down at the other end. Tennis is right there. Softball is at the
Yeah, I think
north,
everything's up in
northeast.
these areas here.
We gotta look at the amount of equipment for each sport
So
too.
that's what I'm saying.
Track's probably the biggest one,
They need what?
because you got the high jump pit, the pole vault pit, and the hurdles.
And then football would be like the next.
Yeah,
It's more storage than you need,
yeah.
quite frankly, than to accommodate all the sports teams.
But like I say, who would benefit? I'd like to know, okay, coaches, are you in for this idea or you're not in for it?
Sounds like they need to vet it more, the district.
Well, also, they're concrete storage, so there's nothing to keep them from using one of those, maybe on the end, on that east end there, to store clay soil, because they're constantly replenishing the infield in baseball. If we go with the clay soil and the batting cages, they could dump it right in there. And that could be stored there instead of having those piles that they have out there by the fields.
What about other items, period, that are not sports related that could be stored in restricted areas?
Yeah, it could be a very functional storage. I just want to be real honest with, and there's no particular sport complaining. I'm just predicting based on previous behavior, what I know will result in an investment right now. And so I just want to make sure if we're going to go down in this and actually do all this and invest in this, be real candid that it's probably way too much for storage of athletics. It could be used for other storage, there's old furniture, but if it's not the intent of the BOC, I don't want later that you guys feel like we've asked for a request that really is not being used for what, I don't know if we're storing dirt and other stuff right there. I'm not sure is wise investment of our money to use in this particular case. So that's just a cautionary right now. Again, we're not asking for approval of this at this stage. I would like us to maybe look more forward to it and see whether if that's the best option depending on what the price comes back at.
I know it's informational, but I'd also like to know how many coaches are for it.
Yeah.
Is it worth it then if they don't want it? What is it they want then? That's where I get frustrated. Because they want, but they're not willing to meet halfway.
If I might heard from what Mr. Encinas has said about getting to the point where we know what to do with it, get the bids, don't do anything with it until we totally discover, talk and decide what we really want to do with that facility. And at that point, then we would know that's the drawings and everything is done. It's just, can we do that and leave it at that? And then down the line, we can figure out what we're going to do with it.
I'd much rather do that than approve a project that won't do what it's intended for.
So do you guys have electrical drawings or just architectural working drawings?
We have electrical and
Okay.
architectural and structural.
Okay.
Remember, Mr. Rizzuto, this storage, the coaches came to talk to us about the football storage, that the helmet's really expensive, and it was like a $60,000
Yeah.
storage thing. I can see kind of to accommodate all the equipment that the football team had gotten, and that was, I think 60,000 comes to mind for that. So I have that. Now that I start thinking about it, yeah, want somewhere nice to keep all the equipment in good condition too.
Correct.
And then, is there any discussion on band room expansion? I don't know if anybody's been seeing any of these drawings.
No.
Mr. Costello and his team have, this is the existing wall, the west wall of the facility, this is the south wall. So all of this part would be new. And these would be ancillary spaces and offices and practice rooms, as well as the main band room, which would be, how high is the ceiling? Isn't it like 18 to 20 feet?
Yeah, 18 to 20.
Okay, 18 to 20 feet. And so this existing room would be gutted out to storage here. And they have a raised floor, and they didn't want that, so that would be gutted out and would give them more square footage. So all of this area would be remodeled. In this proposal, it includes 2 staff bathrooms and 2 student bathrooms. Right now, there's no bathrooms in this facility. The students have to walk out the hallway, go through the courtyard, and go use the bathrooms in another part of the campus, or, in the courtyard, not the courtyard. I think it's out the auditorium. So now they would have bathroom facilities here. And then this would be the guitar dance space. This is the orchestra space. This is the band room with all, and you can see the color coding on the ancillary spaces that go with each major space. The construction of this facility here would be masonry matching the existing project.
So you have some extra screening on the southwest side here, shade the wall. So we would carry the lower spaces, we would carry just out the same height. And then the band room space would be higher for the acoustics.
Nice.
There was also, there was a meeting that Dominic came down with his mechanical and electrical engineer, and we met with Mid-State, and we got some feedback from Cindy Beauvais as well, and they all agreed that the AC system should be package units on the roof and not tie into the existing chiller that's there, because they have a lot of after-hour use of these spaces, and then you'd have to crank up the whole chiller, so they decided to be more energy efficient if there was package units on the rooftop of these. How far would you say
And then
you?
I think the way we designed it was we changed these to package as well.
Right.
Because the valves work.
How far are we on the construction documents?
We are probably about 85%. We have most of architectural and structural and engineering. We're a little bit behind on civil, which is getting through this. There's some water lines in the sewer line that we're having to rattle around where the expansion comes through. And then soils report, which kind of tie some of our structural together.
It's for bailes folclóricos?
Pardon?
The dance is for bailes folclóricos. I'm wondering if
Yes.
there's storage area for costuming and
They,
and
There's
makeup.
Uniform storage, there's costume storage,
you have a music library there too.
Yeah, there's a music library.
You have guitar storage, music library.
yeah, I don't know necessarily if it's dance storage. I think there's a dance area back behind the stage here, isn't there? Is there a dressing room type deal?
I'm not sure, I know that they have this guitar, this whole area here is storage. This is band uniform storage. This is orchestra uniform storage. And it's based on the square footage requirements that,
Okay, dance costume storage.
and this is the costume storage, and this is the dance office, and 2 practice offices. This is percussion storage, your instruments, band library, practice room, and then we have, this is the orchestra office, this space, the band office, this space. And they do have, there is some storage right here. Now, presently, there's a storage right here that they didn't want. They wanted the square footage use. Just like presently, right here, there's some storage which comes out from the walls, and that's all based on, it's stud walls. They wanted that removed because they wanted to use the square footage.
Wow, that's huge.
Well, as can you see there, these have the codes and everything, and here in the paper, is not.
The cost
Yeah,
estimate?
it's just really
Yeah,
small.
we put that on our way out to the works.
Could you explain that a little bit as far as how you came up with that? I assume
For
that-
this, we just took basically 3 or 4 projects that we've done in the last maybe 2 years and similar size. One was in Levine. One was in like Parker, Arizona, and one was in Phoenix. And, so it was basically the numbers we got. We did a low and a high. We thought maybe it'd be somewhere within this range, for 1.1 and 1.38.
So the total square footage of new space is, let's see, 34?
That should be on that.
300.
If I remember right, I think it's about 5,000 square feet that we're adding on.
5,500? The low side, yeah.
I think the slide that you're looking at, instead of this one, has those numbers, right?
Is there a slide we can go back
No.
on the PowerPoint?
On the booklets, because we had printed it.
I don't know.
Oh, no?
I don't see it on here, Dominic.
Yeah, oh, you're right, okay, sorry.
5562. If you take the cost per square foot of deconstruction, it'll come out with 973,000. That's 5,563 square feet of deconstruction.
Yeah, so the new would be this area here.
Whole blue?
About 55. And then the remodel would be this area here. So. Those numbers might change.
Yeah, and I think what the reason it's coming up is the first we've seen some cost estimates and, the original, some of the original discussions we had, that you weren't involved in, we're projecting for a remodel right around 680, and then with a rebuild about 1.2 million. So I think what you're seeing a reaction to, quite frankly, is just a kind of a different projection than what we anticipated moving into the project. So that's why I think there's a lot of just kind of absorbing that in terms of some decision making that we'll have to do.
And to be honest with you, all of this has been discussed and planned, and input has been received from
Ms. Govin, who's in charge of the music department in Desert View, and also Mr. Castellum, and Carl McCurry. And so this is what Mr. McCurry and Ms. Govin believe, based on their experience, and Mr. Castellum, based on the projected growth that they're having in the band and music programs, which Mr. McCurry and Ms. Govin believe is happening also, that they didn't want to be out of space 5 years from now or 7 years from now. So they see that constantly growing, and they see a growing interest in the students in their music programs.
So when we were asked, what kind of input was received from staff, I mean, they've had 100% input in terms of
Design.
from start to finish, in terms of everything that's been done so far. It's been with their input and their approval as far as.
We've been involved in the meetings together with Dominic, and then he's given us schematic drawings and all the drawings they would review and have another meeting, and they might move a little bit or say we need just a little bit more width in the costume room or whatever, but they've had total input on the project.
And it is true, Desert View Band program has been growing. It's not where we anticipated based on uniform mass, just being candid. We're projecting over 100. They're still not up in the hundreds yet. There's a hope with the fine arts that it gets up there. But I can tell you Desert View enrollment is continuing to grow as a school. I believe they grew by 89 students this year. Puts them in stiff competition at 6A, but it does help enroll. So it is a growing school. That is a fact. It is a growing program. However, in anticipation of the cost, and we're going to have to weigh out as a committee whether that's a decision we want to make.
So what's the expectation on timeline for that construction? Is that something they can do over the summer?
It'd probably be close. We've also talked about phasing where
Do the new
they
construction
could do the
first?
new piece and possibly be able to use that while the second part's being renovated. And I believe that they had an alternate location that they could use.
They've been talking about alternate locations for a meeting and so forth. It would be, inconvenient for them, but of course, they're very excited about the idea of having a remodeled space and a new space that can accommodate all of their interest groups.
And the other thing that we've looked at is the fact that this is part of the fine arts expansion, and looking at that there's $1.7 million for the fine arts school. The justification is we need to use that money to be able to fund this.
Also, historically, I found out that this part of Desert View, when it was being constructed, was cut back. That originally, the fine arts complex was larger.
Yeah.
It was cut back because of budget cost, and so it's smaller than the original architects had intended that they needed for a fine arts complex based on a high school this size.
Back in 1983, when we bid it out, the whole school cost $11,275,000, and then we had an additional $2 million for athletic increase. So the total school, as it stands right now, is about, except for the freshman academy, which is another $4.5 million. It was $13 million what we had at Desert View High School.
Yeah, but remember, after we built it, we had to go for another bond just to get the fields.
Yes.
Get the fields. It went, added to the cost, but it didn't come out at once.
That's right. That school would cost us like $50 million or not.
Yeah.
It's an information item, and I think what the next step is proceed with the next phase of the architectural process is to develop the construction documents. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. I have a request for some additional fencing needs at Desiree High School, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Gomez, who's been having interactions with Desiree High School staff in regards to making improvements to their athletic facilities, and it involves more fencing, specifically baseball field gates, for dugout protective fence, west side gates, new parking lot fence, where the new parking lot is, for the softball field, and then in the tennis court concession area, there's an area there that needs some fencing. So I'll just turn this over to Mr. Gomez to present.
We've had a request from the coach, baseball coach, of Desiree that on several items. One of them is this gator, as they call it, which is a portable backstop for batting.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. It's stored right here. And they just got some scrap fencing and they had it tied together. And then they open this up and they roll it out. And they go through the double gates down here. But in next month at the lock, we're hoping to present a proposal for new batting cages that they've been wanting, several options of them that vary in cost. And their batting cage location would be right here. So the idea is to scoot this over a little bit so that they have room for the new batting cage down here. And put a permanent, simple fence around it with double gates that open out into the field. So that they don't have to take it out in the dirt, roll it around through the gate and get it in that way. And that item is listed right here at $31.95. It's item number 4, 3D. Next slide, please. And then there's also an item of 1850, and that's to replace these gates that are damaged and broken. With the new batting cage going here, the coach would need to move these anyways, and so we're going to put a new set of gates right here. And that's the proposal listed here for $1,850. Next slide, please. This was a fence that was here, where they're building in front of it, the new, it's presently under construction, the new parking lot that Block approved for the softball. The softball field's back over this way. So this fence was demoed, and it needs a replacement fence. Next slide, please. The replacement fence would, come along basically the same line, but it would also include coming around with 2 bollards, with a 6-foot fence around protecting the transformers. And there would be a man gate right here that opens up that would be locked, so there's access to the transformers. And then this irrigation control for the ball fields would be put into that yard also. And that's the proposal for $3,995. Next slide, please. This is the southwest corner of the concession stand at Desert View, with sell tickets and restrooms and so forth. The tennis courts are right here. Mr. Holmes wanted 8-foot fencing on both ends with a man gate on both ends. And that proposal is right here for
Bad things happen.
$2,895. There's also, the next slide, please. There's also something that we may want to have in the September block. These doors are old and damaged. In fact, next slide, you can see that the way they're securing it presently, this is in the west wall. is there's a chain on the inside, so they chain them, the handles on the inside because they're not functioning properly. So that
may be a proposal for the September bond.
So, it's not supposed to end, I think
The doors are expensive though. How much we spend on doors? We spend a lot of money on doors.
Yeah, I know.
We haven't hit every door though. I mean, there's a lot of doors in the district. And what's interesting is, and ironic is that used to be the security office. Where Mr.
Yeah, when they went to the doors of DVs, did they mark that one down as one needing to be replaced? It's not, they didn't walk out that way. It was just within the building. And I want to know why you want the fence, the 8-foot fence on the side there.
Just for the players.
Yeah.
I just mean,
Yeah, no, it is one of those areas that people can actually hide into.
Yeah.
Now that you've got, because there was a tennis court right in front there, so it would kind of blocked it. Now that tennis court is away and we're trying to open the facade being open, it's kind of this side little crevice that there's no exit, so it breeds a lot of bad activity can occur in that little corridor there, because there's no, if there's something happens there, there's no way out. Quite frankly, there's only one way in this way. So it's kind of a safety issue if something's actually happening there. But why we're not even moving the fence this way is because also that's an entrance to that room. My preference would have been to actually block it off, but because there's an actual room that it goes into, the only option now is to fence it and put a walkway so you can get to it.
is there any kind of lighting there?
There's a light only through the tennis courts themselves. Then there's probably a little security light that's probably not functioning well.
And it wouldn't be a space where you would be moving equipment through or?
No, it would be only for adults going through there to actually have access. And right now it is actually the film room for the coach, for the football coach, that he's actually locked because it doesn't lock with a chain in the middle. And so it's kind of a big liability waiting to happen if anyone kind of gets caught in there or is just kind of in there. And so I figure if we're fixing and we're putting up a fence, it's worth fixing it now.
So they're just fencing, there's no way you can walk through, or you're going to put a gate?
They would put a gate on one side and the other, so there would be
So
access
there'd
from,
be gates.
there'd be a gate from both sides. So it wouldn't be completely, right now you can't get in from the north side to there, you have to walk around the whole building. Well,
I need to know something. On this dugout protective fence, you said it's to cover that.
The dugout, I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't have photos for that, but right now their dugout does not have a fence in front of it. But about 6 feet in front of that, they have a low fence that the guys can go lean on.
It's what Sunnyside requested, right?
Sunnyside has got,
Similar.
it's got actual chain link on the dugout itself,
Right.
and then a
Yeah, they
small fence.
requested.
There's a few that have a
No
chain
chain
link
link in
in the
front.
dugout, just a 4-foot one.
No, and so the Coach Chavez was saying that his understanding is, according to the new AIA code, I believe was what he was saying, is that it needs to be a 7-foot fence there, because if somebody hooks a foul ball and they don't have fencing in front of their dugout, and that fencing that they're leaning on is low, it's just going to be a line drive right into the dugout. And you know how guys sometimes are talking, they're not paying attention. It's a safety issue. So the proposal for that dugout fencing is a 7-foot fence in front of that. And if they want to still put their shorter fence on the inside of that so they can lean on it, that's fine, but at least that fence is going to be above them if a line drive comes that way.
In the new parking lot, I know.
That was the fencing with the transformers. That old wooden fence is gone because they're repaving that whole area, so there needs to be, and it was dilapidated anyways, so there needs to be a new section of fence across there. It will have a 4-foot man gate that goes, onto the 8-foot walkway that Box has improved that will go from the parking lot, following the security fence along the east side, all the way down to the bleachers of the softball field, so that strollers, wheelchairs can go down that walkway. It's the same width as the asphalt walkway that's around the track presently, that new walkway.
But the fencing on there, wasn't that the area where the security person lived? That's why it was fenced into, like, container, be their yard so-called?
That's my understanding. In fact, this week they had last week they capped off a sewer line and a water line down deep enough so to be below the parking lot that was there for the mobile home that they had there.
Yeah, so that was to contain it. So do we really need a fence in there, or what's the purpose?
Well, the thinking was there's a backstop right there, and if people are there and if kids are there, they can run right into that parking lot with no hesitation. So that was the main thinking on that.
So it'd be just on the north side?
On the north side, the existing west fence is in good condition, and so that was not taken down, that remains, that along the west side of the proposed parking lot.
Right.
So this fence would go from that corner to the security fence.
And then that includes the gate you're talking
That includes the man gate, and it includes the fencing going around the transformer that also has a man gate that they keep a lock on, since it's a transformer.
Any other questions? Tom?
I don't see that proposal, Mr. Gomez, on the softball. On the north of the softball field in the north end. Is it a one-year seat
Yes, it's on, if you look at functions 4, which is 3D, it's listed on there, and these are from Liberty Fencing.
Yeah, I see it. So that green drawing.
Mr. Verdugo, as we're looking at fence, I mean, there's probably plenty more areas of fencing. One of the areas that's come up in relationship to this is also right by that softball. We didn't bring it here because I think it's consideration. I mean, talk about trying to be considerate of the taxpayers and neighbors. Those homes that are right behind there, that fence line is not appropriate for the activity that happens there. And we're not bringing it forward here, but it's something that we're taking a look at because there's literally our homes backed up into the backstop. Not even from here to there, where foul continue to go into people's yards. I mean, so there's some consideration as we're looking at fencing. If we're going to figure out what we're going to do, it is if there's a way to look at ways to make sure that we're not continuously hitting balls into people's yards who are conveniently located by our school. So it may not be the end of the fencing, but it's things that we're beginning to address as we're looking at it.
Big old net thing
Yeah.
in that corner and then across the
That's what-
north end here. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the refence to be awarded, fencing proposal this evening.
Second.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei?
Yes.
Mr. Verdugo?
Yes. Gallego Intermediate Fine Arts School Playground Improvement Proposal, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. Central administration has been apprised of concerns that the site administration has brought to our attention regarding needed playground improvements at Gallego Intermediate. Ms. Anna Warmbrand is here tonight to make a presentation to the committee for your consideration.
Good evening. My name is Anna Warmbrand. I'm the principal at Gallego Intermediate Fine Arts Magnet School. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you so much for taking your time in these evenings to look at how to improve our community. I have with me this evening Mr. Alex Arquidez, our academic behavior support specialist, and Stephanie Ponce, my assistant principal. And we're going to be tag teaming through this presentation. And what I would really love is as we go through this, keep the safety of our kids in the forefront of your mind. We are not here for aesthetic reasons. We are here for the needs of our kids.
So we first want to start off with when the school was being developed and being remodeled, what were some of the things that were put in? We're extremely gracious for the things that have been placed in. We have a brand new gravel track that was laid. Last year we were awarded a full playground equipment, utilized quite a bit by even our older kids. We got new painted outdoor basketball courts. We have 3 fully functioning basketball courts that our kids have outside. And we got 3 sets of bleachers that are installed, one at our sports field, and we'll be able to identify those are our sports field, our softball field, and our baseball.
So with that, we wanted to go ahead and break this presentation up into 3 separate phases. So the first part is going to be our sports field. We have uneven grounds across the entirety of our field. Visible rock formations, a lack of working water fountains for, again, the entirety of the field here, and we'll get to that more as we progress through our presentation. A lack of wheelchair access. Now, if you take a look here, this is our parking lot for our parents, so when they attend athletic events, our parking lot for when they attend, school events and school functions. If we ever have to come out to the field, this is all gravel here, and this is the main access point to our field. There is limited wheelchair access, so any of our students who, or even parents or staff members who are presently handicapped or need assistance with mobility, they have very limited access to the field. And more particularly, we're going to talk about the sports field here, and we'll see some pictures as we go along. And we do have minimal grass growth due to the caliche deposits that are, again, centered on our field here, and we'll take a look at that. So again, the purpose of the sports field that we have in the center of the track is to accommodate sports like football, soccer, cross country, and track. However, the administration, our coaches, other additional faculty, and even our contractors from CORE have made the determination that the field is unsafe for continued use due to the rock deposits that we can find all across the field. It's covered in caliche. There is no wheelchair access to the field. This is a view just off the track. You can see here, and this is actually, this is a rock formation here exposed just recently with all the rains that we've been getting here in Tucson. But that is a major deposit of caliche. But this is also the access to our track for all of our students, family members, staff, anybody who happens to be in a wheelchair or need the support for mobilization. This is how they access the track.
This also includes any students who are to get injured. If we have to send a wheelchair out there with our nurse or an ambulance of any sort, this is the access that they have to be able to go up this hill to help them or assist them in any way.
The only additional access point aside from that is just off to the side, and then again, it's uphill and it's through gravel. These 2 images are actually 2 different points on the field, but standing on the field itself. Again, you can see the limited growth on the center of the field. This is where our students would be playing football or soccer. So imagine just a simple fall, and they're landing in a caliche deposit. So what our hope is to have a field that is both safe for our students to continue usage, and also it's going to be easily accessible for all students, all family members, all staff. With that in mind, we want to go ahead and continue on with our presentation. The next phase is going to be our main fields, which is located down over here. Again, we have uneven grounds, a lack of working water fountains, lack of wheelchair access, and in order to access any of our games that would be happening in softball or baseball, again, our parents access the field through here, and they would have to cross over the basketball court or go up here, this is the access route to the track, but they'd have to cross through here and go through the grass. So again, limited access for anybody limited in mobility. minimal grass growth due to caliche, and lack of shade across the entirety of our field.
Is that your main baseball field there?
This is our main baseball field and our softball field.
This is also where our students play, so the lack of shade, the only items that we have shade, this is a small Ramada, as well as our brand new playground equipment. Otherwise, there is zero shade. We don't have trees that are high enough in growth or anything to provide us any shade whatsoever for the students.
So our main field, that overhead view that you saw where we have clearly defined softball and baseball fields, that was from Google Images. This is the present state of our baseball field. We don't have a clearly defined baseball diamond. Our softball field is in very much the same condition. Again, the grass growth makes it difficult to view any indentations across the field. I myself walked the field when we were taking these images here. We don't have water fountains that are functioning out on the field. From this point here, this is at the far end of our field, our nearest water fountain is located by the restrooms in this building over here. Well, I should say our nearest functioning water fountain. We have one that is just offside of the picture here, but it is, however, not functioning. These are images of the indentations that we have across our field. If you want to kick it again. As you can see, they're not entirely visible. I discovered these just walking the field, and I can feel as I'm stepping. Now imagine a student who's running across our field not paying attention. If they're not clearly visible to me walking, and I'm looking for the indentations, this is hazardous for our students. So we try to limit their use across the field where we know that there are several of these indentations located throughout the field. This is our water fountain that is out by baseball. It is presently non-functioning. So we would like to see a leveling of all our playing field surfaces. Again, safety in mind so that we can have students utilize the entirety of the field. And we would also like to see drinking fountains provided. We put on here a proposal for 3 drinking fountains for the 300 square meters. We have approximately 870 students in the mornings that utilize our field, and we have 1 functioning water fountain outside for them.
To me, this is appalling.
It's tough, and it's tough to have
pretty bad.
answers. I think for the biggest part, it's tough to have answers for our students as well as our parents. It's not going to get better from here. We have a lot of injuries that we're going to talk about, so there are some things that could be appalling, I agree. So this is our phase 3. We really thought about how we wanted to outline the phases. Phase 1 and 2 is very based around safety of the students. We want the fields leveled, so that way when students are out there, we're not having as many injuries. Our phase 3 is our bathrooms. Our bathrooms are located right here by our softball field. This is our main building. This is kind of a twofold for our bathroom updates. These are the only bathrooms that are usable for outside, so whenever the kids are in the morning, during sports, or during lunchtime. But this is also another building that we have 5 classrooms that we would like to utilize. We currently have 870 students. We're only growing. And eventually next year, we will have to use these classrooms. We don't have equipped bathrooms that are to the standard that the rest of our school was developed in. So we have some pictures. This is our girls' restroom. For all intents and purposes, it works. The kids can go in there, they can use the restroom, and they have them. However, we're short toilet paper dispensers, simple things of that nature. Okay, we're short working doors. Yes, dispensers, toilet paper dispensers. So currently in this bathroom, we do have toilet paper that sits behind the behind the toilet. It's not cost efficient for us as toilet paper is rolling on the ground, rolling in the toilet. This is our bathrooms. Our doors, we have 3 stalls. 2 of them are currently broken. This is not for the lack of our staff trying to redo the bolts, redoing the notches, but it's just the old bathroom. It's an old bathroom. Students closing and opening them. 2 of these bathroom locks do not work, so the kids hold them closed, or else we have to let them go inside so that they have their own privacy.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Are those bathrooms hold over from the chaparral?
They are.
Yes.
These are all chaparral bathrooms. So none of these went through the upgrade that we had for the Gallego. We call this our DEV building. This is our diverse education building. What we would like to do is we have 5 classrooms. As we grow, we would like to have them in there. This is the only access they have to the bathrooms. So they'll have to be outside bathrooms that they'll have access to. This is our boys' bathroom. We have 1 stall in there. Again, door consistently broken. It's not to the, again, it's not to the lack of our staff trying to uphold them, but we have 870 kids, half of those boys, all using 1 stall in the morning, during lunchtime, and for all athletic events. This is the only stall that they have. This is the outside of our bathroom. We talked about the accessibility for wheelchairs. We don't have any accessibility for wheelchairs. They cannot make it through this area for boys or girls. We had a student last year, or actually they were going to start with us this year, in a wheelchair. We would have loved to have that student come to our school. However, our school is not accessible. Parents chose to go elsewhere. I do believe they're still in the district though, so that's a good news.
Also here is a image of the 1 water fountain for that entire field.
So we have 300 square meters of a field, and this is the only working water fountain that we have. 870 kids, 3 different times during the day that they can use. And actually this has just been updated, not updated, I apologize. This has just been fixed and painted. So it looks in much better condition than it did about 2.5 weeks ago. So this was the part that I had told you was going to be coming up. So we wanted to give you guys the baseline of why we're having this whole conversation with you. It has to do with student safety. As I go through this data, I need you to be aware that our nursing department just changed their management system, so a lot of the data was lost. This is not our full data. This is only data that was retrievable. Okay, so these numbers are the minimum. They're probably double, if not triple, in some of the numbers. So abrasions, these are cuts, scrapes, that can be assisted with Band-Aids. These are students playing actually on the field that have fallen due to different levelings or whatever it may be on the field. We have 109. Lacerations, these are any cuts that would actually cause stitches or full cuts that they would have to go seek help for. We have at least 4 in the last 2 years. Suspected fractures. When we say suspected fractures, they were broken bones, but we can't say they're broken bones because we're not medical doctors. But when they went to the doctors, it came back as broken bones. We've had 6 of them in the last 2 years. That's a lot. It's a lot, and it all happens on the field, and it's basic walking, it's basic running, and it's all on our unleveled field.
Are you counting my grandson's broken nose as one of the fractures?
We're not, because did he fall on the field and hit his face?
He hit his face on the basketball court. The basketball court broke his nose.
We did separate from basketball court versus field. These have only happened on our uneven field. So we have other injuries that happen, Mr. Encinas' grandson, for instance, but these are only things that have happened on our field due to the unleveling of our field.
That's the outside basketball court, not the gymnasium outside.
I got you.
So, I want to drive the point home, and I'll just share a quick story. In our first year of existence, in our gorgeous, beautiful, amazing facilities, of which we are so grateful, I happened to be having my post-conference for my own evaluation with our Assistant Superintendent, Jen Vesely, at the time. One of our students fell, simply running on the field because it was uneven, and he tripped. 7th grader, big boy, knows how to handle his business, plays football, fell, tripped, broke his arm. Dr. Vesely and I walked out onto the field to assist him and wait for the ambulance, and she observed our protocols. She almost fell on the field. So we had to catch our assistant superintendent. I had to warn my current chief schools operation officer, Ana Gallegos, when we toured the school for the first time that the field was uneven and please watch her step. She, coming up the hill, almost fell herself. This is not an issue that just sometimes happens. This is a daily occurrence in which staff and students have trouble accessing what we call the hill. And we have a student currently now who has limited mobility in one of her legs. She can't get up the hill without a number of students assisting her. And even then, she's extremely nervous to do so because she's not sure if her friends will stay with her enough to get her down off the hill. So the access is a major issue for us. I want all of our students to be able to come and feel like they can get onto the field. And then once they're on the field where we play sports, I would really like to be able to host the games on our actual sports field without fearing that people will get injured. And I don't have that confidence currently. Thus far, our community has been extremely generous in that when I explain to the parents of why their children have broken their bones just simply running on the field, that, you know, they've been very gracious and taken them to the hospital and thanked us for all that we've done. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, this is a bit avoidable, I think. Perhaps if it was leveled out, then we wouldn't have these injuries. And I understand injuries happen. I would prefer it not to happen while the children are just walking or running on the field. And for me, that's really paramount. And to watch some of our kiddos who are differently able, not be able to access parts of the playground, and to watch kids line up and line up and line up to get the drink of water at the one water fountain in a gigantic field. These are things that I say, this committee invested so much in our community to make the very best. And we take that responsibility extremely seriously. And then to have the outside portion unsafe and not accessible for those kids that have those special needs is really heartbreaking for us. And we do use now two out of the 5 classrooms in the building for kiddos. It was intentionally made for our 8th graders to house or another group of kids. It's hard for me to do that with the bathrooms in the state that they're in and feel confident in the safety for the kids and that they have facilities that are worthy of them and their beautiful selves. And we have 870, and the only reason we don't have 1,000 kids is because that's a strategic rollout based upon our school board and our superintendent. We have a very long waiting list. I would love to utilize all of our facilities for full functioning classrooms. However, with the bathrooms in the state that they are, that's an extreme downgrade for our kiddos. So then I have to say, well, who gets the other building, which is by all purposes quite functional, but not with the restrooms in the state they're in. So then you get into, additional concerns. Well, can they use it in the building? Absolutely. I'll need additional security to supervise that, to continually lock and unlock our indoor building. I'll need another security person at those bathrooms and so you get into these issues of security when you talk about, well, never mind, they don't need to use those bathrooms, they can go back into the building. So it's really, we haven't come to the bond committee, of course, because we have, so much money has been invested. But as the years have gone on and going into year 3, it continues to be heartbreaking to watch our kids out there. We can't play in the middle of our sports field where the track was built. And if we could, it would be hard for many of our community to actually get up to it. And so we're just hoping that you'll just think about the safety and the welfare of all of our great kiddos, because it'd be great to have a field that was accessible, is what it boils down to.
First, I want to thank Mr. Holmes for allowing you to do this, because I think anybody else would not have allowed this.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
thank you for bringing it to the forefront, because it's truly, I got to restrain myself from being upset about this. This is our newest renovated project. So.
One of the things when I became a member of the bond advisory committee, bringing my background, was seeing the lack of attention that was paid to ADA. So that was my focus from day one, to make sure everything going forward, renovation of bathrooms, ADA accessible, bleachers, ADA accessible. We built a nice softball field, we put money into the softball field, no accessible route to the facility. We seem to forget that we spend millions of dollars on playground equipment that are accessible, but yet we don't have an accessible route to the playground equipment.
Yes.
So we spent millions and millions of dollars trying to do the best and forgetting the normal rule, how do we get there safely? You know, and so, you know, ADA's been enacted since 1968, and the schools are really slowly coming into, especially our district. And I hate to see it, I know there's been several key strides made lately. There's a lot more that can be made. It's unfortunate we have a bathroom right there that could be used, but you can see right there that there's no accessible route to it. You've got the privacy partition on the outside that was put there for a reason, but they didn't take into account someone might need access with a walker or a wheelchair, and they can't fit. So I don't know if those bathrooms are part of the renovation for the district. No?
I have a comment to make, but I don't know if I'm allowed to make a comment.
No.
It's actually a safety comment. I was housed at that center 4 years ago. I'll let you know about it, just so that your kids don't go to.
Just over.
Pues I stayed there when this cut the ribbon and everything, and I said, wow, it's so beautiful. But I never think like this. Everything you say is really, for me, this makes me really sad because the best room for the kids and first is the kids. Okay, you say the safety and everything.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show that I'd rather we tell our own bad news, than, you know, there's one of many issues that we continue to have to turn over the rocks, literally, right, and figuratively, to figure out ways. And the reason we present it here, quite frankly, is because, you know, you represent a lot of our community, and so these are the stories you hear.
Yeah, this is bad enough that PTC could bring it to the board, and that's even worse.
Yeah, and so these are things, and unfortunately, a lot of our fields are in bad shape. I mean, I just walked the football field. We're playing tomorrow night, and you know, it's, you know, not that the guys aren't good, but it's just it's continuous. You know, I mean, we try with what we have to do that, but there are some places where it's become even more obvious. I was teasing Mr. Encinas because I went to Chaparral when they first opened. I was the first 7th grade class at that same building and the same, and it was even worse then. I mean, I don't think you guys put anything except rocks.
You played with the Caliche rocks.
I played with the Caliche rocks. We didn't have not even those old tunnels that they would put over there. I mean, so it was really bad, but it quite frankly, it's probably been a decade or more that anything's been done in that field, going back to experiences back in Chaparral. So it's about now we're kind of in that unique opportunity to kind of take care of a school.
Yeah, because I thought from the get-go when we approved and they brought all this info to us about making Chaparral, fine arts, whatever, I thought this proposal would have been here sooner because I thought they were going in phases. They would say we're doing the building, the inside and everything. First phase of the whole project, second phase would be coming in to discuss the fields and so forth. But we hadn't heard about it till now.
Well, and just, you know, from our perspective, we're so blessed to have so much in the main building. And we know that the rest of our community, you know, should have the things that we have in the rest of the kiddos. And so with the transition of bond managers and, you know, of leadership, we're just very patient in waiting, to be real honest with you, and just, you know, spread the wealth. I wouldn't have come here because I think it's like, oh, so greedy, you know, because there's so many other schools that have so many, you know, worse facilities in so many ways. It's just that when I watch our new 4th grader try and get up the hill, I just can't have that. And I'm embarrassed to say, you don't really notice it until it's right in your face. And the second those kids hit that campus, they're my kids. They're my babies. And I can't have it, you know? And I'm sorry I'm getting emotional.
Okay,
I just love them, and she can't get up the hill.
But that's the thing, one of the problems is safety.
Yes.
One of the major problems to begin with is safety.
Yeah. So we're patient. We don't like to cause a lot of fuss about it. We have so much.
In walking the fields out there with Ms. Warren Brand and Ms. Ponce, you can see a lot of the caliche, and it's not small layers. You don't know how deep it is. You can, and apparently Core planted grass there, and they put in an irrigation system. But that watering, when you have that caliche or rock like in a farmer's field as a base, the watering, just all it does is take the finest particulates and filters it down through, and it looks like every year like the rocks come up, because it does that. And farmers experience that also. So if a new field's going to be put in, just planting grass won't work. I'm suspect that you're going to have to take out a foot of soil, and then maybe put 4 inches of sand, compact it, water the heck out of it so it goes down, and compact it, and then bring in 8 to 12 inches of topsoil, and then you can put your grass. Otherwise, the problem won't go away.
And what happened with the water fountain? Isn't it because you say there's no water and everything? The water?
You mean for the drinking fountains?
The drinking fountain.
I don't know.
On the outside ones, if I can. First, I totally agree with the soil issue. When we went through the plans on Core Construction, when they dug out for the irrigation lines, they piled everything and then put everything back. So they didn't even siphon the dirt. They just removed the caliche and then put everything back. And then added the topsoil, which of course the topsoil is washed away. Our equipment that we have doesn't even dent that stuff. There's nothing, I mean literally, other than getting a loader in there, a scraper, and taking everything out. What we tried to do, that one that they showed you on the outside bathroom, we fixed that one. I don't know if it was your nurse or your PE coach that said she raised money to get something else.
Yes,
And we were gonna, the
Has
PE
been-
teacher.
Our students actually went and won a grant, and their proposal was just to get water outside, and they won a grant to get an additional water fountain.
And that was for $1,000, so I told her, I spoke to Mr. Encinas, and then we're gonna supply the labor and see what we can do to get everything else fixed out there. What we're afraid of is that with that caliche moving so much, it's busted lines, and to get through it, it's better to redo everything, in my opinion.
And if I'm not mistaken, the other 2 water fountains that we showed you up here that are not working, it is due to busted water lines. We had many of busted water lines and water seeping up from the ground in the last couple of years, and so the water was shut off to those. So the 2 water fountains that we have, it's not necessarily that they're not capable of working, but it's because of the grounds have busted the water pipes. They've tried to fix them, and again, the second year, it busted the water pipes again.
And it just pools and pools and stagnates. And in our main areas around where the tables are outside, where the children sit in the basketball court. And so that also is not an acceptable thing to have on the field. We can't just have stagnant lake waters. And so without those being, fixed in a timely manner, we were forced to shut part of the water off. And that was our solution to mitigate that, with the hopes that, of course, our children would raise enough money to be able to assist with the new water fountains, which of course is a much larger issue than the children realized when they went and got the $1,000. Of course, we're extremely proud.
And if you get a tour of the place, they do have a trailer security site that maybe adding a parking lot like Desert View would come in handy for the baseball and softball field, in my opinion, because they do have that empty lot on that side of the rooms, on the west side of the school, where the old security trailer used to be, and you can have access through there for the fields. But in my opinion, they're totally correct. Their fields need to be redone it's just going to be a major overhaul.
So right now, you have sports teams for the various sports. So
yes.
where do they practice?
They use our main field, so not the sports field. It's down on the playground field.
It's not where the track is, it's the other one.
Yeah, which does pose a bit of a problem during our lunch recess time, because we do have 2 PE classes that are constantly going, and so whenever they want to use the field, we then have to limit even more the use of our playground field during that lunch recess time for any students that are outside, so that we don't have any kind of monitoring issues with the PE intermingling with our lunch recess students.
And when it comes to athletics, we started off in the middle of the track. We deemed that not safe as students were getting injured. We were losing our football team is basically what was happening, and we didn't really have a huge football team to start off with. So we moved down to the middle of the main field. That again, rocks coming up, all kinds of holes and stuff. So then we actually moved all the way to the furthest west side, right before our fence hits Desert Willow Trailer Park. And so we're right in between, right in the middle of the baseball and softball outfield that we use. And it's a small little area, and it's the furthest away from our parking lot. No accessibility to get there except going through all the gravel and the grass. But it's the lesser of the three as far as when it comes to injuries.
So it's the most level.
You guys still host schools?
Yes, sir.
Oh, we do, and I am always concerned as we host. It's bad enough to take care of my own community and explain to parents, but God forbid one of the children gets hurt on the football field, which isn't what should be our football field. It's the other part of the field, kind of out in no man's land, which is where we asked to have it at least mowed and then lined, because I feel most confident the children will be safest there. I do not feel confident in the fields within the track because, as Ms. Ponce stated, 4 days in a row it took out our football team members just running, just during their drills. It wasn't like a, combat type of, not a normal football injury. It was just them trying to practice and warm up.
And to combat with that, we, during our AD meetings, our middle school AD meetings, we give the other middle schools a heads up about the conditions of our field, to have the kids be careful, make sure the kids are wearing cleats and not tennis shoes, and try to do whatever safety precautions we can have.
And to add to that, this is my first year at Gallego Intermediate. Last year I was at Esperanza and I did coach the soccer team there. And when we played against Gallego, we did have 3 separate students who ended up with rolled ankles before the end of the game. So the data that we showed was specifically Gallego Intermediate students. That's not included any other students that have visited the site over the last few years for other sporting events that may have incurred other injuries.
So why I put the recommendation is because I do want Mr. Gomez to explore some, and I put reasonable options because I don't want to come back with artificial turf, across everything. I mean, just so that's what. But there are. Exactly, but I think the main concern I have right now is how do we get the field independent of the shade, and how do we get kind of the leveling of it? Because if that's a big endeavor, it's going to take a major company to come out and dig through to dig enough to put topsoil that's going to last, right, and take it out. And so that would be a large scale project that will require both time and some money that we'd want to come back fairly quickly on. And that's probably the simplest of it, but it's also going to mean a displacement of folks for some time as that gets done, because if I'd like to act quicker on it, which means we need you guys to accommodate some of the displacement as we're moving forward to fix it for you. That just puts an inconvenience at the site, because because I don't want you guys waiting until a break to happen, or literally and a break in our calendar as well. So that would be just my recommendation.
We'd be more than happy to accommodate whatever schedule comes up.
And I'm not unrealistic. When I became the principal at BC in Tucson Unified, there was no grass at all, it was just dirt. And so we were able to plant grass, and that took 7 months, of which I had no access to 90% of my field. So I understand the reality of having construction happening within your field, within your school community on the day-to-day, and I've had experience with that, a lot of experience without having access to my fields. At that point in time, we had 700 kids. So I don't come here lightly like, oh, just plant some grass and it'll be fine. I'm well aware of the issues that we will have to have for safety and for the ability of our kids to still play, and all of those issues. I have in my mind burned very clearly that year of construction on my campus.
I'd just say that I probably have some reluctancy getting CORE involved again. Because if they've done this twice, they obviously don't have any vested interest in, our school district.
Sorry. Loud and clear.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
And thank you for allowing us to come. We appreciate it so much. I can't even tell you. I hate to ask.
Well, I'm going to make the motion to start off to request that Mr. Gomez explore reasonable options to improve campus conditions.
Second.
Roll call.
But do we have to give them a budget in order to accomplish that? Because you probably have to hire them Okay,
Let's see the options first.
next month.
Yeah, 1.1 million.
So that's 1.3 of the core budget.
Yeah, but we may take, remember, 10%.
That's right.
Might take 10% from somebody else to help.
Yeah.
Mr. Rodriguez, I know the civil engineer and the landscape architect in charge of the master planning for Sorrel Rita. And so they would be the first people I would call about this problem. And if they don't know, they would direct me to some sources to start getting different prices and different options.
Don't you need like studies of the erosion that's going on there and
Well, they may have all of that, but at least the people that deal with that every day would have a list of consultants and people to call and get prices and start to understand
U of A
the problem.
school of whatever that does that, right? It'd be a good study for them, a good project.
Well, they do. In fact, they have a DVD that has all the plant material that grows in the Sonoran Desert here. And they give all the information on that, the depth of the holes and the spread of the trees and what you can plant by walkways or pools of water and what you can't. And it's a whole, they give that out for free.
Different uses of caliche in the desert. Wow.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei?
Yes.
Mr. Verdugo?
Yes. Bond project update.
Mr. Goldman is going to bring the committee up to date in terms of all the projects that have been undertaken, in progress, and I'll just hand this over to Mr. Gomez.
We skipped,
Did we do it?
No, that's postponed. That's postponed till next week.
There's a few of them that are in progress, most of these are complete.
Yeah.
This is the tennis court and the surfacing that they put over it initially after they put some material in the cracks and so forth. Next picture. And then as it was finished, we even had famous visitors. That came and
Recognize the belly.
Don't wear purple anymore, Hector.
Hector's, I got that from Rocky Point.
These are just some different shots of the tennis court. It came out very nice. This is the new fence along the west side that was installed. And the curb is right outside of that. Fortunately, it was installed right before the monsoons came in. And I have some photographs. I don't have them on here. I went there when we had some downpours.
Is that the work that was being held up with the chain?
Yes, that's on that side.
Yeah, this fence? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Does that chain belong to Richard Sanchez? He wanted to take it.
Oh. Phil might know. There's Phil. He might know what happened to that chain. I don't know.
Kindergarten maintenance.
Oh, okay.
Those are the poles you're going to paint?
Pardon?
Are those the light poles you're going to paint also?
Yes.
Maintenance.
Right, yeah. Right here. And they're discolored and they're fading, and you can barely see right here that they're starting to, the paint's fading, it's starting to rust a little bit, and it's going on to the concrete sands. This is the Santa Clara. This is the existing bathroom. Next photo. Just showing the tile floors. Next photo. When they pull up the tile, it's been there so long that it actually sometimes pulls up, scarifies the concrete. It pulls up some of the concrete with it. So they're having to refloat this, and then of course they're making corrections on existing plumbing. And this is showing some of the existing plumbing in the walls, and there's rust down at the bottom. And there's things that Midstate corrects before they enclose the wall and install the new plumbing. Next photo. This is the girls' bathroom, one of the student bathrooms as it's finished, with the new partitions, new toilets, new sinks, new mirrors. In the elementary schools, they go up about, I think it's 5 feet, a little over 5 feet high with the tile, and then they repaint the rest of the finishes. These bathrooms at Santa Clara and Los Amigos are about 96–97% complete. They're totally operable, functional. But they, for example, on some of the ceilings, they haven't repainted the grills yet and so forth. They wanted to get as many as possible online, and then they'll come back and finish those touch-up items.
You just look at, go ahead, right there, right here.
The one, there's a clip right here.
I'll help you, go ahead.
Blind leading the blind.
And then this is showing the finishes, with the new fixtures and so forth, the before and after, and the tile that's put on the floors. Originally, they were talked about, the floors being polished concrete, but in most of the older schools, they're not able to do it. There's too much damage to the slab, and then so they have to float, and they're going with the new tile. And the standard of the tile is the same that's used in Guadalupe Intermediate for all the schools. And then the typical boys' bathroom. And Mr. Rodriguez, we haven't forgotten about the urinal screens. They gave us one proposal to putting together a price. I didn't agree with the screen because it just is suspended from the wall. We need the one that anchors on the floor and up on the ceiling where it won't last.
Are we gonna do the same thing at Sunnyside? I visited Sunnyside today, and it looks really nice, but there's no partitions there. Are we gonna do the same thing there?
My understanding is to get a price, because that wasn't in Mid-State's bid, so they're giving us a price to do that. And then I have to ask Mr. Encinas what the next step is for that.
Go back and redo.
I think that was just completed. I mean, the whole bathroom looks really nice.
Which one are you talking about?
The outside ones that
The
are,
one outside by the football field, the ones that
They just did that one just because of graduation.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But they haven't Sunnyside High School yet.
No, that's not, the one I'm talking about was the one by the football field. That's the one I went to today.
Next photo. Next photo. And then all of the, all the hardware they're using is full-length hinges on the doors, brackets on both sides of the partitions that anchor to the wall. And so they're doing a good job on the construction, and hopefully these partitions will last a long time, for many years. And the clientele's happy. I asked him if he liked the new bathrooms, and that was his response.
Don't make sure you get this.
I can reach it.
Sierra Auditorium, just a quick review. This is, the seating that they had before that they had taken down. There was, I think, around 125 seats. Now we have 190. That was before as well. This is the new finished project.
looks nice. It looks nice.
As I mentioned before, these lights are, they can control them with an app. So they can have just the stage lights at a certain light level, the rest of the lights at a certain light level. They can leave a different light level for some of the lights in the back. And they can arrange any group of lighting they want with this light. And these are the new seating. It's 190 seats, and the new flooring. Project's completed. Now they have also new audio visual. They have a new projector, a larger screen, new speakers. Here's, you can see that the old speakers they put on the sides, and then they have new ones in front. And Mr. Raymond is very pleased with the sound and the functioning of the audio visual.
And our guys installed the audiovisual equipment, right? Our
Yes,
staff.
yes. Mr. Bacchus crew.
Yes.
And this is the Sierra gym floor that was redone. It was refinished. This gentleman worked very hard on all the painting and finishing. This is the finish and the shine that's on the court right now. photo. This is showing how it turned out with the colored keys that Bach approved, remember the 3-foot band around.
The new bleachers aren't scheduled to be installed until,
They're on the fall break in October. And then with Challenger and Apollo, because of the ordering time, they're being installed at the Christmas break. Next group. This is the weight room, a desert view. In this photo, it was about 90% complete. The flooring installer, who also, advanced equipment, who also did the equipment, got a misorder, so they couldn't complete the center band of their flooring, so we had to wait about 5 days for that. But the guys were anxious to use it. Mr. Williams had his crew start training right away. Next photo. Next photo. This is the project completed when they added that new center area.
and the walls were painted by our department maintenance staff, right?
Maintenance did the walls. We put, the existing ceiling grid remained, but the maintenance installed a new tile. And then Midstate put the new light fixtures in.
But our guys painted the whole, the gray band and the maroon
Maintenance
band.
did all the painting of the walls, and also they did a lot of, they had to replaster these walls because there used to be acoustical tile on there. When they pull them off, it was the glue and so forth, so they had to sand that down and replaster. This is the Challenger gym floor. It's the liquid urethane float. It has 2 coats of sealer. It has a rubber mat, 2 coats of sealer, and then a finish coat, and this was completed last week.
That used to be tile,
This floats on top of tile.
but it used to be just regular.
Linoleum? A regular VCT.
12 by 12.
Yeah,
Mhm.
ECT tile, yeah.
Miss Doodleson, the principal, and Louis Robles, the assistant principal, is asking about painting these walls, which are dark maroon, to match this color. And they've been asking, is that something maintenance should do, or is that something they should ask Bach for? But they want to put a wainscot this color. They want to paint this, and then paint the doors the same color, and then put a wainscot around the gym.
They can go in the weekend.
They can do it the weekend.
If you remember, Bach approved an addition of the 3-foot band and the logos, and that's what that project is. Challenger, so the Challenger's completed last week, and Apollo is, they'll probably be putting on the first coat, maybe the rubber coat this week, and then they'll finish next week.
Looks nice.
These are the door projects at Apollo. They're waiting for the glass order, so wood inserts were put in the meantime. And Nelson Greer will come back, and we're going to be painting all of this frame gray. That's part of their contract that Bach had approved for painting all the frames on the new doors that are going in.
And
These new doors are, they have the full piano hinge on them. They're metal. They're supposed to be anti-vandalism doors.
And the papers on the doors, that white paper, what's it there for? Again, just to remind people.
It's to remind the visitors and parents that
The glass is out of order.
to be patient with their.
Yeah, so they wouldn't think that, what happened, did everybody break these windows out there? Aren't they ever gonna fix these windows? So we put up those signs saying, the glass is out of order, hasn't received it, so don't worry, okay, don't complain, we're not done.
Kelly Doors believes that they'll be finishing all the install, including the glass and so forth, this Saturday, when the crew comes in all day. They worked last Saturday also. This is just the same door set on the inside view. The building pods, there's 8 doors in building C. We have aisles from the classroom and exit doors, so this is a typical exterior of that exit door. And these are the new classroom doors that are being installed. They put a first coat of paint, and then Nelson Greer will come back after all the doors are installed and do a touch-up and all the painting.
One of the things about the new hardware, apparently teachers were complaining that in order to lock a door before, they had to go outside and lock it with a key. There's a problem with, now they can lock it from the inside.
Right, there's a key lock on both sides, so that if they ever have a lockdown, the teacher can go right up and lock these doors. This only groups?
Yeah, it's all.
Okay.
Request for future agenda items.
Yes, again, an opportunity to get some input from committee members as far as any agenda item you'd like for us to come back at the next meeting. We are scheduled to meet 2 weeks before our next meeting, but if you have anything at hand right now, we can put on the list.
I wanted to bring one up, and maybe it can just wait till we get to the very end, but there's a lot of schools, especially Laufer, they don't even have a marquee sign, so. And some of the other schools that do have marquees, the ones that are facing towards the sun, are so disfigured and discolored that you can't even tell what school it is. And on the other side where it doesn't hit, they look brand new, so. And then I think some schools may need letters for their marquee signs. So I think maybe if somebody could just evaluate all the schools to see who might need marquees or painting on them or whatever. Because that's the
Marquees
first thing the parents see, you know.
Are crazy expensive. When the D.R. Horton one, I was involved with that. I worked for them at that time. It was $30,000. And that was 13 years ago.
Still working there?
It works great. It works great. We spent a lot of money on it.
Any business? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Mr.
adjourn.
Gomez had a,
I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh, it's okay. I did get a, let's see, an email response back from Jim Crater of Norcom, and he, in regards to the bleachers, he said the gross seats are the full run of bleachers. Net seats have the space for aisles removed from the count.
We have a motion to adjourn, right? We had a second?
Sorry, who's second? Who's second?
Who seconded the motion?
did you second? I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei? Mr. Verdugo?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
I wanted to thank Gallego, but they did a good job on their
I'll tell him.
presentation.
I'll text her.
Are there schools in worse condition?
You know, that's one that never was done. I mean, I've been doing it since I was a student. It's always been a mess. It's been caliche rock there. And I was